Hey, hey. What's up, everyone? All right. Uh we're going to try to get into this topic. So, before I jump in, I just want to full disclosure what this stream is cuz it's a little break from our norm. If you notice, we're in the just chatting section. Uh we're actually going to talk about art, but we're not going to actually do any art normally on this stream. And if you're finding this video because you're looking for to answer this question of should you go to art school, uh, what's up, Keely's? I recognize you from the Discord, but love like Liz. I've been putting Keliz together. Love like Liz. Hello, hello. Um, yeah, so this isn't kind of like our normal stream. Usually we sit down and do a bunch of art on Photoshop. I'm a comic book colorist by trade. We're not going to do that this time. We're just going to ask and answer, should you go to art school? Um, it's also, I'm going to put this on YouTube. I might cut things in YouTube. I might do some editing to try to make a more cohesive package. I don't know if I'm going to break it down into smaller pieces or what. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what makes it to YouTube. But something's going to make it to YouTube, and all the content's going to be there. If anything gets cut, it's basically stuff that is just does not work. All right. So with that preface, I'm also going to couch this whole thing with like these are my opinions. If you know in your gut, you're like, no, art school's the place for me. That's the only place I'm going to be happy. I say, don't let me dissuade you. Essentially, is what I'm saying. It's a difficult question, and the only reason I want to go through with it is because I just feel like a lot of people stumble in that maybe haven't totally thought about it, or people do it and they're unprepared for what happens in the 4 years of art school. I'm assuming, by the way, this is all assuming undergraduate education, 4 years. You get your bachelor's of fine arts at whatever school you went to. Before we get into it, I went to Savannah College of Art and Design. I graduated in the mid 2000s. I graduated with about 80K worth of debt for the school, which is dwarfs what school costs now. It's so much smaller. That's not what dwarfs mean. But anyway, I graduated with a lot less debt than kids who are graduating from college now are doing. I also went to school in the United States. That's also important because we're gonna talk about cost of school and everything. And feel free to chat, ask questions, whatever you need to do. Hey, Fake McCoy. So before I jump into my experience at art school and the pros and cons of it, I just want to paint the picture for you guys. I was a mid-level student at art school. I was never really on the when we put our projects up, I was never really on the bottom of the tiers, and I was never really on the top tier. I was doing thank you. I like this hot dog. I felt like every once in a while I'd get a flash in the pan brilliance and get into the top 3 people who were putting the boards up. But mostly I was a mid-level student. And when I was 16, my portfolio looked it was cobbled together by a 16-year-old. When I was 16, I didn't really have any formal art education. It was a lot of my art teachers in high school trying to be hey, you should do still lifes, and I didn't understand why I should do a still life. And so it was a handful of still lives for art college portfolios, a little bit of life drawing as far as landscapes or whatever, and then some comic book stuff that I put in there because I was copying a lot of stuff out of 90s comics, which were huge, and then I was also trying to kind of cobble together my own style, but like I just didn't have the foundations to like really do some good cartooning yet. So that's kind of like what my portfolio looked like. And that portfolio is ultimately like pretty directionless. How's it going? Cheese string, chase string. How's it going, man? So like that portfolio was pretty directionless. That portfolio, I was trying to brute some babes to get into art school. Yeah. That portfolio, it like didn't have any direction behind it because it didn't know what people wanted. It didn't know like what was required. It didn't know how to even learn art in a constructed way. It was just like me basically like, I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna panic and like, here's all the drawings I did. I don't know. I've just been drawing. I don't know. That's what it was. It was me kind of like trying to self-teach. And this was all like in the 90s, like late 90s. So there was no like YouTube, there was no internet, there were no resources. Like basically I was stuck with whatever book I could get a hold of at my local library. So like this was a long time ago. There's much more available resources now to figure out how to constructively learn art. And we'll talk about that near the end. So I just want to say, like, who art school is definitely not for. When I went to school at Savannah College of Art and Design, I was in the like classes with Sean Murphy. Do I live in a desert? Yes, and I am 1,000 feet tall. So I was going to school with Sean Murphy, who is kind of the inspiration for this stream because I saw him on Twitter basically just being like, don't ever go to art school. And I've seen Noah Bradley, who is a Magic the Gathering digital painter and regular painter as well. He was saying, you know, like, don't go to art school. But then he was following it up with, instead, pay for my courses. So, you know, be a little suspicious of people's motivations. I don't think that art school was built for... I can 100% understand why Sean did not enjoy art school. I don't think art school is built for a person like Sean. Sean was drawing all the time. He entered the Sequential Arts program with a better portfolio than most people exited with. And because of that, because he was on like the top end of this skill level, teachers were teaching classrooms full of people like basically how to do comics, and like they were teaching lessons that Sean had already learned just by like doing it himself. So he actually bounced out of the Sequential Arts program at one point and then bounced back in. I wasn't really good friends with him then, so I don't know exactly what his motive, what he's thinking of at that time. But I will say that like, so he exited and he was really disappointed with the education that he got, and he went and learned how to ink with a brush with another artist, basically like an apprentice program, and he learned and grew a lot in that time. The comics that he was making, is this guy drawing? Thank you for the host. The comics that Sean was making while he was in school versus the next like 3 or 4 years when he got out, radically different and so much better. He did a lot of growing once he left school. I don't think school was for him. And that's to say, if there was like a bell curve of like, you know, most students in the middle, Sean at the top of the skill tree, and then students at the bottom of the skill tree, I would also say, hey Walter, what's up? I would also say that the school was not for those students at the bottom of the skill tree either. Like, as much as Sean was like, I've absorbed this information, you're not teaching me anything, and I'm very bored. Like, school was also not for these people at the bottom of the skill tree. And what I mean by that is there was a student that was in my year, and I forget what uh I like kids at the right age of 20 thing. I mean, kids to me. Off-road was like a year out of school. Yeah, for Sean. Let me finish this thought. So kids were this kid was like started his education and was joining these like anime clubs, which is fine, but he was like also I could tell he wasn't like putting the work in. And to a degree, when you start art school, you have to kind of roll with the punches. You're not going to understand everything you're going through at the time. And stuff like life drawing, if you're like super into anime and you want to draw comics, and then like you're forced to go to like a life drawing class, you're forced to go to like, figure drawing in like traditional sense, you're gonna hate it. And I think this kid just like this wasn't the place for him. Like he just wasn't in the mindset to be like, well, I'm gonna try this other thing. I'm gonna try this. He was just like, no, I want to do this. And everything that wasn't that, he didn't want any part of. So he didn't do a lot of like really like good drawing. He didn't do a lot of like great learning. And by the time, and he was taking teachers through the sequential arts program that were very, very easy on their students. And he graduated with, I remember being in like senior project, and he put up a page that had no gutters, no borders. It was just like one line through the page, another line through the page, panel 1, 2, 3, 4, done. Like, and he was drawing characters that were like standing on the panels. So it was just like really uncomfortable to read. And this is basic stuff. Like, I feel like at some point, and I don't know what this kid was going through. He could have been going through, oh, thank you for the follow, by the way. He could have been going through a lot. I didn't know him personally. I don't want to disparage him. If he's watching this, I hope he's still drawing. Like, and this is also, when I talk about art school, I talk about all this stuff. The last thing I want to do is, you go to an art school, we're going to talk about what you should do once you get there. So maybe this will be relevant for you. I don't want to disparage anyone from drawing, and I don't want to disparage anyone from going to art school, and I don't want to disparage anyone from learning. And like, also, I realize that people have other stuff going on other than being at art school, and I don't know what this kid was going through. He might have been going through some hard shit that I didn't know about. So what I would say is, if you are on the bottom level of that bell curve, if you are that kid who's turning in a senior project without gutters and borders, and you're just kind of coasting through watching anime, like, maybe art school isn't for you. If you're Sean Murphy and you're entering art school and you're looking around and you are like, I am like objectively better than everyone else around me and I'm not getting anything out of this, art school, also not for you. For me, as like a kid who at 16 had this like cobbled together portfolio and also just like kind of didn't know where to start as far as like any kind of constructed learning, art school was for me. Art school is really good at teaching you how to basically, like, eventually you learn how to learn. Basically, that's the goal of art school. There's a way that like colleges are perceived where hey Sajax, yeah, I haven't seen you, I'm glad you're here. There's a way that art schools are perceived in which, or college in general, like when I was you felt that way in community college because you loved the beginning art classes were the same ones you took in high school. Yeah, you have to have like a certain level of patience, because there's a lot of lessons that you learn along the way that aren't specifically instructed to you. We're gonna get into that in a second, but like I kind of lost my train of thought. So art school, you have to keep an open mind, is what I'm saying. And you have to like understand that there are things that you don't understand while you're doing it. There's a lot of projects that get built in art school where like, it's like draw a shoe, 50 times. And that project is built to be boring. Like, it's built so that you draw the shoe in the angles that you're comfortable with, and then you get out of your comfort zone. And I don't know if that's necessarily stated in art school, but it should be. What I was going to say about learning to learn. Yes. So there's an idea that, like, when I was 16 and 17 and, like, trying to pick out colleges and, like, trying to figure out my life, which is heavy to put on the shoulders of a kid, I had this kind of, like, you're in the public school system or private school system or whatever, and you're given grades, and there's clear goals, and you achieve them, and you move on to the next thing, which it's like an unlocking system. It's like, oh, you do this and you get this. You do this and you get this. You do this and you get this. I thought that college was the next step, and that college was this. After college was like, oh, and then I'll get job, and then, like, I'll be at job. And in reality, I mean, like, if you're studying to be a surgeon, you become a surgeon in school, like, you do residencies and all that kind of stuff, and then eventually at the end you can do surgery, and you will place in a job for surgery. And, like, that is kind of how, like, normal quote unquote school works, or like a vocational school or anything. Like, you learn to be a mechanic and then you're a mechanic kind of thing. With art school, it doesn't really work that way. But it still retains that structure of, like, you're going to go to school and you're going to get a grade, and there's importance placed on that grade as far as, like, dean's list. There's importance placed on that grade if you have scholarships and you got to maintain a GPA or something like that. None of that matters at all for anything. I've literally never... I've been out of art school for 15 years. I've been working in the industry for 15 years. I've talked to people in animation. I've talked to people in concept design. I've like been to Valve before. I've worked on comics with them. No one has ever been like, what was your GPA? What art school did you graduate from? Like, people will ask, what art school did you graduate from? Not to be like, I went to a better one. No, nobody cares. Like, they just ask to be like, oh, did you go to the same one I did? Like, that kind of thing. So there's, like, this idea that when I went to school, I was really committed to this idea of, like, you dropped out of your screenwriting program for health reasons, but you met a few really good people there to support you a whole lot, for sure. Fake McCoy, your degree is in sequential art. That's what your degree is in. Do they care if you even went to art school? Not at all. Not at all. No one has ever hired me and been like, well, we really want to take you on, but we can't because you didn't go to art school. That's literally never happened. So I'm just trying to, like, frame this whole discussion in, like, what you should think about art school. So I went in with this mentality of, like, I have to complete these tasks in order to get to the next thing. And, like, I don't ever have to do anything extra. Like, I just complete the task, next thing. Complete the task, next thing. I had kind of adhered myself to this system of, like, GPA, degree, thing. Because that's what I was taught, That's what anyone teaches you. You basically almost failed color theory and you're a colorist now. Yeah. I mean, there you go. So yeah, I kind of, like, felt like that stuff was the important stuff, and I didn't realize that it's like, no, like, you can still, what's my GPA? Oh, Hulk Hoquin. You've been applying to game writing jobs. All of them state that the degree is a plus, but equivalent experience is just as valuable, literally on the job application. Absolutely. How you get that equivalent experience is kind of a difficult thing. But like, so I was kind of adhering to this system when what I should have been doing is like trying to learn how to learn at art school. I didn't realize that like I was struggling with anatomy and I was struggling with hands, and like I didn't realize that what I needed was to like sit down and draw 10 hands every day before I get started drawing whatever my project is. And I didn't realize that because no one assigned it to me. Like, but it was specifically what I needed. But I was like, well, if I'm not going to get a grade on it, then why am I doing it? I need to do this to get to the next thing. I think that you really need to shed that mentality if you're trying to get into art school. You've gotten tech jobs that require a degree in comp science. You don't have one of those either. Yeah. So like, basically what I want to wrap this idea up, like the world is kind of like pitched to a 17-year-old as like, do this, then get this. And in my experience, like it might just be the art world, but none of it is like that. None of it. Like you can do some art school and drop out and still have a decent portfolio and still get work. You can do all of art school, have a decent portfolio and still get work. You can do all of art school, have a terrible portfolio and not get work. I will say though that if you are looking for things that alternative to like, you know, portfolio based stuff, like if you feel like if you get through like half of art school and you're like, man, this is not clicking with me, but I love it and I don't know why I should follow through. Like, I don't know why I need this degree. The degree, a lot of like white collar jobs in job placement, they won't promote you unless you have a college degree, any college degree. So like that is what the degree, if your path takes a different road than art, like that degree will mean something, but that's like pretty much it. So anyway, yeah, so that's kind of like what my mentality was when I was 16, and I didn't quite understand like how art school functioned, and I was like super disorganized and I didn't understand how to learn. So if you were in like my shoes, like I think that like I'm a prime candidate for art school. Now I want to start to get into like what kind of art school should you pick and what's the difference in art schools. You just started Drawbox, and part of the thing is 50% fundamentals practice, 50% fun. And the problem is you don't know what to draw for fun. Yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense. So I started asking a lot of artists about like what their experiences were within art school. And some of the artists that I talked to and some of the research that I was doing, some of the more classically trained artists were like brilliant at like recreating masters works. Figure drawing is on point, like just like rendering is beautiful, just really beautiful work. But when it comes to making something out of the blue, they just like, they couldn't do it. They couldn't. That creativity is just as much a muscle that you need to exercise as the fundamentals. Anyway, let's give me 1 second here. So in doing some like light Googling, which anyone can do, this is topuniversities.com. So this is art schools, and I would say that any art school on here is probably just as good as any other. I don't know what they do to rank these things. Like these things, it's so all over the place. Like and Savannah College of Art and Design isn't even in the top 50. I don't think. I think it was like 60 something. Where is it? We can do a find. 36. It is top 50, but it's low in the top 50. Bottom half. Anyway, I don't know, like, here's what I will say about choosing an art school. There's no art school that you're going to go to, like a private art school. Sorry, I moved the chat because I changed monitors, so I'm trying to keep up. Just give me a second. Yeah, these are just art schools. Animation programs are completely different ranking, and you sure learn how to draw there. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. This ranking. Take any ranking of schools with like a grain of salt, because like just because you go to the right school, quote unquote, does not mean that you are guaranteed success. Just like I was talking about how, like, you know, when I got into the real world, I was shocked to find that, like, because I had done the thing, I didn't get the other thing. Like, nothing, there's no right school. There's no entitlement. There's no, like, you do this thing and then you're set for life. You know, that doesn't exist. You need, like, if you are thinking like, well, I'll go to Harvard and then I'll obviously have like everything set up for me. I went to college with a good friend who got a full ride at an incredible scientific school. I'm not going to name the school. I'm not going to name the friend because I don't want to out him, because he went to the school, decided he was going to deal drugs, even though he got a full ride through the school, and then failed out in like sophomore year and like became an addict. It's like, just because he went to that school doesn't mean that his whole life was predestined, you know? People can go to nice schools and fail, and people can go to crap schools and succeed. It really depends on the person. Do this thing. Win the lottery, set for life. Yes. MIT has a research prize for science dropouts. That's awesome. Just to break the wheel. So, okay. So we're looking at, like, top 5 are Royal College of Art, Parsons New School, RISD, MIT, and this one in Italy that I'm not going to pronounce because it's going to be bad. Those are top 5 schools, quote unquote. Any of those schools are going to teach you, like, every single one of those schools, and probably every single school on this list is going to have, like, fundamentals on lock. Like, you're never going to go to a private art school and they're going to be like, oh, life drawing? You mean the holodeck? Like, strap in, put on the VR. We're life drawing, old life drawing with paper and pencils, the way of the past, Grandpa. That doesn't exist. I'm gonna wait a second because the lawn guys are outside. They're just idling the thing out there. Give me 1 second. So, yeah, like, the way that art school works is, like, there are, does art school make sense for older folks? You're about my age and you're just getting into art and design and you're worried that it's a young person's field. I would say that you are better prepared for school. I would say just in general, school in general, like, you are better off being older, going back to school than you ever are as a 18, 19, 20-year-old. Like, you know, a bunch of great artists who graduated from RISD. Yeah, I mean, these schools have all put out great artists. What I want to say about art school is that, like, every single art school is going to have you with a paper and pencil drawing naked people. Every single art school is going to tell you to draw from life. Every single art school is you're going to pick up a book about color theory. Every single art school is going to teach you perspective. Like, these things, you're going back at 35? Yeah, dude. Because at 35, your, like, head is in the game. Like, you're, like, there for the right reasons. You're probably paying out of pocket, and you're probably, like care about it more. So yeah, like, all of these schools are going to have all this stuff going on. Like, there's no art school that's like, oh, we abandoned color theory. You know, like, that's madness. Like, the fundamentals of art are so inexpensive as far as like tech goes and never change. So your first 2 years at any private art school are probably going to be the same first 2 years at any other school ever. Where you start to like separate resources is stuff like, 3D animation, that kind of thing. That's when you start to get into like technical know-how. But like with comics, and like that's where my background is, with comics, with illustration, with things like that, it's really like Photoshop. And even then, I've worked with plenty of comic artists that are like, I don't know how to use Photoshop, like where they just send me raw scans and I fix it. Like that's happened before. My own personal experience, I'm a comic book colorist. I've been coloring for 15 years. I went to 4 years of Savannah College of Art and Design. I had one class on color theory and I had one class on how to color comics. Both of those don't even fill up a semester of everything that I went through. So yeah, what I was going to say is that, any single art school, like the only times that you're going to be like, hey, if you visit a campus and you're looking to get into something like 3D modeling or whatever, then it's like, I need to see your facilities. If you're looking at maybe doing sculpting and you're like, I need like a giant kiln. Do you have that? Like, that's the only time that you're going to really like, as far as like the fundamentals, there's no art school that's not going to give you that. So, you don't need to see, a bunch of kids sitting in a room drawing a still life. And like that stuff is really important. And that stuff is going to make or break the rest of it. So take that stuff seriously. So the other thing that I will say is like, you should look at the student work that's coming out. I don't know if you know, I wrote some notes because like, I want to make sure that you guys have all the information that you need. It was like the first time I've ever done something like that. This is the other thing I will say about cost. So this is also from topuniversities.com. This is like art and design schools in 2018, like it says up here. And I'm not going to read you the website because why would I do that on stream? That's boring content. But I will say that like, I thought that Savannah College of Art and Design in general was a very expensive school. It clocks in at, currently around, $50K a year. So $200,000, total. I found that rather than that being expensive, that most private art schools in the United States clock in at $200,000 to $300,000 a year, or $200,000 to $300,000 for 4 years of school. And we're going to talk about, what that means for when you get out of school when we get to the end. So I do want to say that like, are you going to any schools on that list, Colin? Yeah, I'm also interested. So this is my advice to you as well. If you're like, well, I want to go to art school, I don't know where to go, and I don't want to spend a lot. I don't have a lot of money. So like we look at this list and it's like Stanford, $69,000 a year. Nice. Let's look at Art Institute of Chicago, $60,000 a year. Pratt, $51,000 a year. Let's look at MIT, $49,000. RISD, $48,000. Parsons, I think, is like really expensive. Oh, it's $46,000. It's still really expensive. So like, but you noticed I skipped a bunch. The whole reason I wanted to put this website up here is because like Finland's Aalto University, I don't know if I probably butchered that. It's in Helsinki. For US students, it's $18,000 a year. Like for masters, 14,000 a year. So that's like what? Like 1 year of Savannah College of Art and Design for 4 years of this university in Finland. What's another one? Arts in London, $24,000 a year. So you're paying half of what you do for Savannah College of Art and Design. Number 5, fifth best according to their list, the school in Italy. Look at this. Look at this. $1,000 to $4,000 a year. Like, if I was going to send a kid to art school and they had a killer portfolio and we did not have a lot of money and I wanted to just send them to art school and I didn't care where it was, it could be anywhere in the world, like, send them out of the United States. Like, if they don't know exactly what they want to do, but they just want to like learn art in a general kind of sense, like, absolutely send them out of the United States. You will save like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, it is bonkers, like, how much this stuff costs. Royal College of Art and Design, Royal College of Art at the high end at $26,000. But like, who knows what's happening in England? Blah blah blah. Brexit. Blah blah blah. So, okay, we were talking about student work. Let's talk about student work. Any school that you ever apply to for art school is going to put out a bunch of student work because they want to put their best foot forward. And they're going to put out, like, this is the Sequential Art Program website for Savannah College of Art and Design. This is the program I graduated from. Sequential artists are telling today's stories, blah, blah, blah. Launch your career. These are all the degrees. So this is telling. They say student work, and then this is not comics. Like, this is just 5 figures on a blank page. And then it says, land your dream job as a sequential artist. So this ties in, this feeds into this idea that I was talking about before of like, you do the thing and then you unlock the next thing. Like, there's no job placement for comics. Absolutely none. I've been doing this for 15 years. There is zero job placement for comics. There's no landing the account, you know? It's laughable to think about. Like, what there is going to Comic-Cons with your portfolio and making network connections and grinding that until you land a gig. That's the reality. That's the reality. And there's nothing about Savannah College of Art and Design or any other school that is going to be like, hey, we're gonna place you somewhere. We're gonna give you help to get a job. Like, there's nothing that they can really do to help you with those kinds of things. I'm gonna catch up on chat for a second. Are you going to be in one of those schools on the list, Colin? It sounds like a huge thing to pay back at $30 a page starting out. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Local community college, then you're eyeing a college in Portland. Colin, you're probably doing it right. MIT is a deal. Yeah. My brother, he went to not art college, but he went to a college that had engineering and art. And those were like the two things it did. Engineering and art. He went for engineering. The school is paid for, but they only accept like 1,500 kids a year in both departments combined. It's very difficult to get into. I wish that, like, there's no tuition. I wish that I applied there. I really do. Because we're gonna get into like why when we get to the end. So yeah, like this is bullshit. Like, any school that says come to my school and we're gonna land you a dream job is blowing smoke up your ass as far as art works. Like, that's a liar, and you should call them a liar. If somebody's telling you that to your face, you should definitely call them a liar. In your mind, you always saw it as someone carrying one of those portfolio cases into a shining building somewhere, landing and interviewing for a job as Marvel. Yeah, it's like laughable. Interviewing for a job as Marvel penciler. Your school is mostly nursing and teaching, but you got good comp sci programming base there. Yeah. So Savannah does do this. They host like editor day and like people come to the school and talk about working professionals come and talk to the students. It's okay. Like, the thing is like in my experience, the work that I was doing, I wasn't ready to like land a job. So like talking to editors was a neat thing to get like their perspective on my work and what I needed to do next. But that's also something that you can do, anyone can do, just by bringing a portfolio to a Comic Con. So like this was really great because it like gave that to kids who in an environment that is low pressure, you know, like you have this little festival thing at school. It's low pressure. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to pay for a hotel. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You just show up and they look at your stuff, which is really good. But there was no follow through to like get kids to go to cons after that. Like I was going to cons because I fell in with a group of really ambitious people, other students. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But yeah, this is like a weird thing. So then it says like related majors and minors, and then you want to see more. So I was like, yeah, I want to see more. And this is like a really odd thing. Careers in sequential art seems like a weird thing. Get recruited and hired by the best. Like, I don't know that anyone has ever like been, and I mean, maybe this is just like my opinions and whatever, but like I've never talked to an editor that's like, oh, we hire people right out of Scad. Like that phrase has never happened. So I think that people who are getting jobs at these places are getting jobs at these places because they're hustling when they get out of school because they need to work. This guy, Chris Lai, CEO of Caravan Studio, that's his studio. He made a studio when he got out of school, not because he was like it's like he did that. Scad didn't do that. Scad did not career place him as a CEO. Like this is a very weird thing to have juxtaposed to the other thing. Scad will see you to success, blah, 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 blah. So I wanted to look at student work because, so I was like clicking around trying to find the student work, and this was the best thing that I could find. This is a like Scad student portfolio. We're going to blow this up, and like, we're not going to sit here and like rag on student work or any of that stuff because like, that's not what we're here to do. The only thing that, you're president of Fake McCoy Comics. Congrats, Scad. Yeah, right? It's colleges absolutely market themselves as like, we are able to look at all the job placement we did. Like, we're able to get all these people jobs. Look at all the jobs that they have. Like, I don't know if Scad has ever talked about me, but I know they've talked about Sean Murphy, and Sean Murphy does not like Scad. He says he's blacklisted. I don't know. I don't want to get into the drama, but like Scad, all colleges will take credit for their most successful students. That's bottom line fact. I would say so when I was going, it was like the late 90s when I was like looking at school, and I couldn't follow through and figure out like, if this was, I just took their word for it. I was, I'm painting a picture of like, when I was 17, not only was I clinging to this system of like grades and unlocking things to get to the next level, and like, then that comes to me and then that's the next thing, and I deserve that. Not only was I like clinging to this like order within chaos, but like, I was also like, I'm going to take your word for it, school who has everything to gain. Like, it's really, really difficult. You got to really keep on your toes with this kind of stuff. You're up for artist draft next year. Counselor says you might go for a second round. You've noticed Vertigo Scots at your recent showings. Yeah. For job placements, Stats Art Institute would take credit for most people placed with Adobe, and they took jobs in tech support call center. Yikes. Yeah. So we're not here to bag on student work. I did want to like flip through this thing because I thought there was a startling amount of like no long form comics. Like, it's a lot of single page stuff, which is indicative of like what I was doing at Scad at the time too. Like, we were doing stuff that was like, do this project, it's 2 pages, it's 3 pages, that kind of thing. It's 1 page. Try this out. It's 1 page. Like, this is, I think, the longest story in here. It's 2 pages. You know? And this stuff isn't bad. Like, this student work isn't bad. They're putting their best foot forward, though. And I would say that, like, they're also, they're trying to trick you. Like, this stuff is absolutely sequential art. These are pages. These are students doing pages. This is a cover. This is not a sequential art page. This is feet, faces, and a landscape. This is not a sequential art page. Like, they're 100% in the game to trick you. This is one single image. This is one single image. Those are illustrations. You know, these are single illustrations. This is concept design. You know, and I get it. They want to tell you that, you know, like, maybe they're giving you a well-rounded education. But, like, I want to, if you want to go to, like, break into comics, like, I want to see comics, you know? Like, show me what you're made of. And then beyond that, like, this stuff is probably the closest to, like, mainstream comics in this entire portfolio. Savannah College of Art and Design, in my experience, was built to get you in and get you out. Like, you go through the program very, very quickly, it seems. And like I was saying before, like, I was having a problem with anatomy and I was having a problem with hands. And instead of, like, slowing down and being like, okay, draw 10 hands every time you, like, sit down to work. Draw, you know, like, I want to see you at every single nude model session that you can get your hands on. Instead of doing that, it was like, okay, I'll do the next page. Okay, I'll do the next page. Okay, I'll do the next thing. I'll do the next thing. And when that happens, because mainstream comics, and I mean, when I say mainstream comics, I mean like Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, maybe a lesser extent Image. Like, if you want to work on Superman, you need to know anatomy. Like, this page is cool. Both these pages are cool, but, like, we're talking indie comics now. Like, this whole portfolio has been indie comics. And, like, I'm not here to, like, rag on indie comics, because I really love indie comics, and indie comics are, like, having a boom right now. There's a lot of people who are doing non-traditional things within the comic world who are making money. But, like, where did I pull this from? I can give you the link. Hold on. I'll put the link in here. There you go. There's the link. Scad puts one of these out every year if you want to check it out. They have, like, back issues too, so you can they're all up there. So the thing is like, when they talk about job placement, what they're talking about, like, as far as, like, making money within comics, especially when you, like, just get out of school, you need to be prepped and ready for 20 pages a day, or 20 pages a day, 20 pages a month, like, Marvel, DC caliber work. And, like, if you're not going to do that, if you're going to do indie comics, if you're going to make your own comics, you need to be really great at building up your fan base and like, because you're going to need to create enough product for that fan base to fund you making work. And this is practical stuff. This is, like, stuff that I was not thinking about when I was in college. And, like, so this stuff is good, but, like, between the, like, okay, next thing, I wasn't slowing down enough to be like, I'm having a problem with anatomy. I need to do anatomy stuff. Like, I need to stop making pages and I need to nail down anatomy because I want a job out of college. That never happened. And that didn't happen for anybody in my sequential art program, as far as I know. So, like, we're getting kind of to the end. Also, like, this stuff is cool, but, like, don't put it in your comics portfolio. Like this is a beautiful illustration. Beautiful. It's not good for your comics portfolio. Like, we've talked a lot about, like, what you should put in your portfolio and what you shouldn't. I'm gonna flip to the end real quick. So this is what I wanted to show you. This is like their sequential arts program catalog, and in here we have BFA animation. There's like illustration. Like it's mostly sequential, but they're even padding their sequential art program. Yeah, they totally encourage you to do more rather than better. You're 100% right, Fake McCoy. And I don't know if that's indicative of all schools, because I haven't been to all schools, but that was how SCAD was built. At least when I was there. It might be different now, and it might be different depending on the teacher that you have. But it was also like, it was hard for me to figure out, like, I didn't even know to communicate my goals to teachers in order to get what I needed either. Like, I'm putting a lot on SCAD, but like some of it's on me too. Like I was there and I was present and I was just going through the motions, like doing the thing they asked. So yeah, I think it's interesting that they have like non-degree seeking students in here, and like, they're the like master's and bachelor's program. It would be nice to see like, here's just the bachelor's program so that you kind of know what you're getting into. Yeah. So, I thought that was really interesting. So, okay, let me look at my notes so that we, so there's a whole other aspect to going to art college, and that is like intangible things. When I went to school, not only was I clinging to, like the structure and the system that was like ultimately going to fail me, or I'm going to be worse off because I was clinging to that structure. But I also was, I didn't realize it at the time, but SCAD was a really good fit for me because I was living in Connecticut, and I had like a small tight-knit group of friends, and we were going to punk shows and stuff, but I wasn't really like great at socializing. I had a very supportive family. So I was like cocooned in this thing where like I didn't ever really have to push myself socially. And I was also very nervous about that all the time. And by going to SCAD and being so far away from everything that I knew, it helped me like develop the skills that I needed to socialize when I went to like Comic Cons, for example. And then not only that, but like by going to Comic Cons with friends that I had met at SCAD, it was like a little bit of pressure off the shoulders. Like it wasn't just me at the Comic Con, So like those are two things that are like intangible like SCAD gave them to me, but not with classes, not with, worksheets, not with like that kind of thing. Fake McCoy was talking about this in the Discord, where like we had met when we were in school, and I showed him a Strong Bad email, and he thought it was cool, and he started learning Flash animation, and he got a job doing animation when he got out. Like we took an animation class together, and it was like I enjoyed it, but like it didn't do anything for me. Like, but for him, it was like a big deal. There's all these like, just by being at a place with a lot of like-minded people who are sharing stuff that they love and pinballing ideas off each other and thinking about art all the time and open to new experiences, there's all these like intangible things that you can't predict that are going to happen. And that's like one of the better things for art school. That's like one of the better arguments for art school. You will get more based on the relationships that you make in school and the things that happen that are intangible and unpredictable than you will out of worksheets or filling up a sketchbook or whatever. The other thing is that this wasn't really a thing with comics, but it kind of was for me. I didn't think when I joined art school, zero. You made zero connections at art school. Just go back. No, don't go back. But I mean, like, these are real things. Like, if you're going to art school and you're like, I still bump into students, like, or they're not students anymore, like people that I went to art school with who are doing other things that are like, hey, you should check this out. Hey, like, what are you up to? You know, like, I'm still pinballing around with other students. It's incredible. I will say that, like, out of my entire graduating class, I see maybe 4, 5 of us total going to cons still, that largely a lot of people just didn't I don't know, didn't do comics, and if they did art, they did it somewhere else, which is fine. But it's like a weird, you would think that if you went to school for sequential art, that you would exit doing sequential art. Just hang out on campus without actually attending the college. It's not a bad suggestion, to be completely honest. Like, I was thinking about this, like, so, like, how much are professors making? Like, now that I'm in the real world and I understand that everything's chaos and nothing's organized, like, you could attend art school for $100,000 or $200,000 at Savannah College of Art and Design, or, and hear me out, you show up on the first day, you ask the professor if you can give them $1,000 cash, and you sit in the back. Like, there are no rules. Like, really. Life has no rules. Life has no structure. Like, whatever professor you find that is down with that, you just keep taking classes. So, there's one thing that can kind of, like, up your odds as far as, like, these intangible, like, coincidences that happen. Because they happen not only with the student population, but they also happen within the area. I got started doing comic book coloring not because I went to school and I was like, I'm doing coloring. Like, I went to school and I did, like, all the stuff they asked of me, and I got into, like, junior year, and I was like, oh man, I only got a year left. And, like, I started looking at my work objectively, and I was like, I don't think I have, like, what it takes to work at Marvel and DC, like, just objectively. And I don't think I can get there in, like, a year and a half, you know? Like, there's certain, like, realistic things that happened. When that happened, I was like, well, like, my coloring's pretty good. And I wasn't like, I took computer coloring and it's one class and that's my solution. It was because the reason that I was looking at coloring in general was because Xylanol Studios was there in town and they were doing computer coloring. And I think that the computer coloring class went to Xylanol, possibly. Xylanol Studios no longer there in Savannah, Georgia. But the whole reason it was in my brain that, like, you could make a living doing this, and that maybe I could do this instead of doing, like, penciling, because my palette was really good, was because of Xylanol Studios being there in town. And so by going to a place where things are happening, you can maximize these, like, intangibles, you know? You can increase the odds of, like, pinballing around in a way where you find yourself in a situation that you never set out to be in, but is ultimately beneficial. And I will say that, like, there is not a lot in Savannah, Georgia. Like, Scad, as far as, like, technically is a very good school, but, like, when it comes to these, like, extra stuff, like, if I would much rather be in the Atlanta campus, because, like, there's a lot of animation that gets done there, as, like, Adult Swim is there. I know personally, like a handful of my friends who work in animation are like based out of there. Um, there's a lot of artists, comic artists that I know that live there. Portland, there's a lot of comic artists that live there. You know, LA has like a lot of use. LA and New York are like where a lot of studios are, as far as like art and stuff like that, like animation and wherever. But there's no real central place for comics, really. Um, but like if you want to get a job, say for example, you're like, I love Doctor Who. I want to work on Doctor Who, and I don't know. I want to get there. I want to get to that place. I want to do filmmaking, concept design, whatever, set design. You're looking into degree programs. I would say that like the other thing you should look into is like, where is Doctor Who being shot? Like, if it's shot in Savannah, Georgia, Scad's your best bet. If it's shot in London, you should probably go to a school in London. Like, just by being around that kind of stuff, like, you will bump into people. You will make connections just like solely by existing in the same space. When you were working in animation, everyone I hired worked locally. We took our interns at a local colleges. He even hired a guy who was working at the local art store, and he's now a very successful storyboard animation. Yeah, like if you show up, and this is the thing, is like, so I showed up just real quick when I was thinking about this stuff, and I was like, hey, maybe coloring. I went to a con, showed a coloring portfolio to an editor. The editor really liked it, and I brought it. I went and took a chance and went to the studio, just myself, nobody else, and just showed up and was like, hey, can you just take a look at my portfolio and tell me what you think? Am I making any mistakes that I just don't see? And Lee Lowridge was running the studio, and he looked at it and he was like, this portfolio is really great. If it helps you get a job, you can tell people I said that. And then like weeks later, he had an opening in the studio and he got in touch with me. That was like a serendipitous, like kind of thing where like, you know, that wasn't what I set out to do, but it happened because he was there in the location. He was hiring locally. You know, he knew I was there. He knew I was capable of doing the work. He didn't want to outsource it. He wanted a person there, you know? So think about location when you pick an art school. Okay. So let's talk about the I got notes here. I skipped around a little bit. We're going to talk about, okay, you started school, you picked an art school, you're going to art school, you're currently at art school. What do you do now? Like, what should you be thinking about? Here's like kind of, I guess, my regrets as far as like art school goes. I'm gonna move my notes over here. I wish I was drawing more. This deserves a second cup of coffee. Yeah. So by the way, speaking of deserving a second cup of coffee, you can see why like should you go to art school is a loaded question, and you know, this, you can't answer this with a yes or no. You can't answer this with a tweet. Like, I don't know you, and I don't know what you need. Like, what I needed for myself was structure and to be out of my comfort zone when I got out of high school, and I got it. You know, if I had gone to a closer school, I wouldn't have gotten out of my comfort zone, and I probably would have been worse off, to be completely honest. Like, I probably would have been far more introverted than I am now. So yeah, let's talk about art school. Let's talk about my regrets. Let's talk about stuff that I wish I had done while I was in art school. The first thing is, I wish I was drawing as much as possible. You do not realize how much time you have at art school to draw until you leave. Like, and I don't even know if this is something that like I can even convey to you, because when I was 16, 17, 18, like, I didn't realize how much time I had then either. like just to draw and like hang out and like, I was working at the supermarket and hanging out with my friends and going to punk shows. Like I spent a lot of time in front of like a Dreamcast just chilling with my friends. The thing is that like some of that time should have been going to like this like structured learning of art, but I didn't know what that was. Like I didn't know. But once I got to art school, I started getting an inkling of like what structured learning art looks like. And basically, I wished that I was doing extra stuff. One of the reasons why Sean Murphy was so good while he was in art school was because we would have classes. So we'd have a class that meets like Tuesday, Thursday, right? So on Tuesday, they would assign a project and they're like, okay, this project's going to be due next Tuesday. Sean would then go home, and I'm using him as an example. I hope that's okay. I've talked about him a lot because he's a great example for a lot of stuff with art school. Sean would go home, do the project, finish it by the next class. So he would be Tuesday, the thing is assigned. Thursday, he'd be done with it already. And instead of just being like, well, taking the weekend off, he would just do it again. Like, he'd be like, I think I can do that better. And like, sit down and do it again. And I didn't understand why he was doing that at the time. I was like, dude, you just like chill out, like play some GameCube. Like, I don't understand what we're doing. But like, it clicked once I got older, is that like, basically all time is precious. Like seriously, you will not have the same opportunity to sit down for 6 hours at a time and work on a page when you get out and you are working like a day job, or you are working like I'm struggling to and you'll have the Messiah in the Desert approach. This is a meme. This is a yelling cowboy meme. That's why you followed. Well, I hope you stick around. So Sean was doing like twice the amount of work. He was doing twice the amount of drawing as everybody else. And like, that is like an incredible thing that like I didn't understand. And that I wish I had, like, I'm trying to do pages now on the side. I haven't drawn in 7 days. Like, that would have never happened in art college, and I wish I had done double the amount of drawing in art college. And maybe if I was doing double the amount of drawing, I would have figured out hands, I would have figured out anatomy, I would have got hired at Marvel or DC. Like, I don't know. Who's to say? But I wish that I was drawing as much as possible. We have, with Savannah College of Art and Design, a portfolio looks like, and I've talked about this before, a portfolio for comics looks like 10 pages, 10 of your best pages, bring it to a show it off. We had basically from Thanksgiving until like January 6th off of school. I don't know how, like, what is that? Like 40 days, 50 days. I don't know how 50 days went by without me coming back with a fresh new portfolio. Like, and not only that, but like, that is a prime time. I wish I had a teacher that said this to me. This is a prime time for you to take a month off and figure out if you can even do what Marvel and DC asks of you, to do a monthly comic. Take a month, see if you can pencil 20 pages. Come back with those 20 pages and let's see them, So yeah, draw as much as possible and think about the end product. I talked about earlier about boring assignments are built to be boring. I wish I had known that, because there's a lot of assignments like fill up a sketchbook, and like, as long as it's filled with something, it's great. I'll take it at the end of the year. You get an A on that assignment. And I thought, oh, this is just like another bullshit task I gotta get through, Where would you get a script to practice doing 20 pages a month? There's a lot of scripts and resources that are floating around. You can find them. If you Google comic book scripts, you will find like sites that have just like scripts ready to go. Like, it is not impossible. I don't know if I could have found it way back in the early 2000s, but It's possible. And most writers, like, you could put together just like a you know, a tweet even out there and been like, hey, I'm gonna like put a couple comic experience archive for scripts. Absolutely. This is your biggest school regret. You took those Phyllis sketchbooks things never seriously enough. Yes. So we're going to talk about that in a second. You can, if you're looking to like just see if you can be a comic artist, you can, there's like a lot of script stuff out there, but even if you can't find anything, heaven forbid, you're inept at Googling, you can't find anything, you can just tweet at comic book writers. A lot of them have old scripts laying around that they will happily lend you. If I was a sequential art student and I had some pages under my belt and I was feeling like, okay, I'm going to try this, I would tweet at like, you know, writers like Cullen Bunn. I would tweet at, I know he's put scripts up. I would just tweet at these people and be like, here's 2 pages of my work. I'd pick the best 2 pages and be like, I'm a student. I'm looking to get better. Do you have any scripts that I could draw just so that I can practice? You know, I'm sure you will get responses. Comic Experience has like 100 scripts. Yeah, Jim Zub's Patreon has all of his scripts. Yeah, they're out there. No. You don't sound lazy. A lot of this stuff is asking, and I'd rather you ask than not ask. So, like those sketchbook assignments, basically a lot of the times in school, we'd get an assignment that seemed like busy work. And when I was coming from high school, which, spoiler alert, if you're in high school or about to be in high school has a lot of busy work. So I was coming from high school and I started this art school stuff. And then I was like, I got to fill up a sketchbook. I got to draw 50 feet. Like, this is boring. Like, this is busy work. They're just like messing with me. They're just giving me something to do for the sake of giving me something to do. But what I didn't realize was that, like, draw 50 feet. Like, that is an exercise, like I said earlier, like, you draw everything you're comfortable with, and then you draw outside your comfort zone, and you grow and you get better. It's built to be boring so that you get bored, and then you experiment. With the sketchbook stuff, like, when a teacher assigns you to fill up a sketchbook, it's not just some mundane task. Like, you should be working on that sketchbook regularly. What they're saying by giving you a sketchbook and being like, or not giving you, they didn't give it to you, but like by being like, hey, buy a sketchbook for this class. What they're saying is not like, put whatever junk down and I'll give you an A at the end and it'll help your grade. What they're saying is like, here is a sketchbook that is a place where you have permission to fail. Like, you can do anything you want in here. Oh yeah, there you go. White Ash script. Yeah, that was what you needed to hear. It's supposed to be boring to push you out of your comfort zone. Yeah, that was I wish somebody said that to me. And I wish somebody gave me this advice with the sketchbook. Like, by giving you a sketchbook, they're saying, you can put anything you want in here. Try the things that you're not comfortable with. Try to do things that you think are not, you know, your strengths. You can fail in this and you will still get an A. You know, you have permission to draw something that's not finished, that's not going to go on the board, that's not going to be judged by your peers. Like, that sketchbook, I wish that they had sat down and been like, okay, 100-page sketchbook. What's your top 5 things you're bad at? Fill 20 pages each of those things. Like, I wish that they had framed it in that way. And then said, you know, these things are not built for you. Like, I'm not going to judge you based on like how well executed you did. I'm going to judge you based on like, you know, if you finished. So that you can get better at these 5 things. I wish I took that more seriously. The other thing is that I wish I diversified a little more. We talked about how I did a class with Fake McCoy. Also in the habit of doing it regularly over time. Yeah. You grow more doing a skill a day for a month than spitting out like 30 skulls in 3 days. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But 30 skulls in 3 days, you still get the grade. Yes. Yeah, White Ash is beautiful. I just did well, I can't say because I don't think it's announced. I did a thing for White Ash. Anyway, everyone should check it out. So I talked about how I did some animation stuff with Fake McCoy, who's in the chat. I wish that I did more. Like, I wish I diversified everything that I was doing. Like, I was doing. The reason that I got involved with comic book coloring was because I took that coloring class. I don't think that coloring class was required, but I'm not sure. I can't remember. It's fading. But like animation, I took a class. I wish I took another one. I've never painted with oils. I would love to learn how to paint with oils. They intimidate the crap out of me. I never got to take a painting class. I never got to take like a straight up watercolor class. All the sequential art classes I was taking were pencil and ink. Like that was it. So like there was all these things that like one of my regrets is that like I wish I experimented more with my electives and I wish I pushed it a little more. Or like rather than taking like this is the other thing, rather than being like a degree seeking student who is like now I'm taking like basic algebra because I need that math credit to have an accredited school give me a degree. Like instead of doing that, like I could have been growing more as an artist by taking something like printmaking, you know? Anyway, yeah. So diversify. Here's the other thing. Trust your gut. Like, and this is something you'll develop over your artistic career. Like as far as your art, as far as like stuff doesn't look wonky, you know, like in your gut, you know, if it's like not right. I took a scripting class that I got C's from, and the teacher was like, I was like, how do I get better at this? And he was like, well, you know, you got to really understand the human condition. Your people aren't reading right. And like, I was a kid, like, of course my people weren't reading right. And this was the first scripts I had ever written. Like I was not in my zone. Like I was like, he was like, here's a book on like driving forces of evolved man, like lizard brain stuff. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, this doesn't help me at all. Like get better at scripting. I was just like, I don't know what this is, and I don't have the tools to even like extract the relevant information. And my gut was telling me the whole time, like the whole time I was in that class, like this is bullshit. Like I can script, and like I shouldn't not write what I want to write. The whole time my gut was telling me that, and I wish I listened. Instead, that whole experience scared me away from scripting for like 15 years. You know, only in the last like year have I started like doing just little short stories and like little pitch ideas in the last couple of years before this. You really got to trust your gut with this stuff. And also you need to understand that like your teachers who are teaching at these colleges, like there's the old adage, like those who can't do teach, but like, and I don't want to disparage anyone because like teaching is a respectable thing, like 100%. And when I was 18 and I had no structure and I didn't know how to learn, and I was just like flying by the seat of my pants, and I like knew a little perspective, and I knew a little, like did a little life drawing, and that was like it. And like a teacher who has only executed a few things out in the real world and then taught can absolutely teach me fundamentals of art because I know nothing, you know, like the teachers were great for that, but they're like, I rounded out to a point where like I felt like I wasn't getting anything out of it. and my gut was saying I wasn't getting anything out of it. And I wish I trusted my gut. And instead of just like rolling with it and being like, well, I got to get that A, I got to have this structure, I got to do this thing, I wish that I took the teacher aside and was like, look, you know, like, I don't want to, like, these assignments are awful. I've done these assignments before. I don't want to do 2 pages at a time. I want to make something more long form. How do we start to like train me to be a comic artist? You know? Because I'm sure that if you ask for things, these teachers are willing to accommodate. A lot of times the teacher teaches a class that is, they're teaching a group of people. So they're teaching to like the middle of the room. And if you feel like you're no longer the middle of the room, you got to ask for help. So hold on, let me catch up on chat. You spent all of last year researching the human condition so you can get better at writing. It was a lot of things, but I came out the other side with a real understanding of what you're trying to do with your writing. That's cool. I was not ready for that, like at the time. How do you differentiate from your gut telling you one thing versus telling you a project is repetitive and busy work, yet it turns out to be rewarding? A lot of this stuff is just like, you develop, like, so when I was early on, I was learning at an incredible rate because I didn't know anything. And then later on, and like when things were hard, my gut says this sucks. Like, but when later on, I was like, my gut was saying like, this is bullshit. And there's a distinction there. And I think that's just something that you develop over time. But the only reason that I like brought it up was because like I want that to be in your brain while you're at art school, because it's something that you will develop over the course of art school. And when you hear the little pangs of like, this is bullshit, or like this guy's wrong, or like whatever, like trust yourself, because you know what you need and that person might not. So trust yourself, stick up for yourself. Ask for things that you need. Yeah. So this is the other thing. Basically all of Scad was geared towards a portfolio. And I talked about this a little bit, like, 10 pages. Why wasn't I doing this over winter break with an all new portfolio when I come back? Blah, blah, blah. Think about your end product as well. I wanted to be a comic book artist, and I had never put together a sequential 20 pages by the time I exited college. When I took senior project, they were like, how many pages do you want to color? And I was like, over 3 months, it was like 2 or 3 months time. I think 3 months time. They were like, how many pages do you want to color? And I was like, 20? That's like a full book. And they were like, that seems like a lot. And I was like, does it? Because it's 3 months of time. Like, I should be able to do 3 times that amount of work to be able to execute on the project. So you want to think about not only your portfolio, and they're going to gear you into like thinking about your portfolio at all times, but you also want to think about like what your end product is going to be. If you exit school and you're like, you want to be an animator, and you're like, here's my student reel of like, 20-second things over and over and over again, versus you exit school and you're like, here's my 5-minute movie that has like a story and an animation, and it's like cohesive and well put together. Like, one speaks louder than the other. When I exited school, I wish that I wish that more classes geared themselves into like, when you're done with this class in 3 months, you're going to have a mini comic that you can staple together and put on a table at a Comic-Con. I wish that more classes did that. Instead, it was like, do one to 2 pages, do 3 pages, do, like, you want to get a job doing the thing, do the thing. Exactly. Like, I don't mind looking at portfolio. I love looking at portfolios. We do portfolio reviews on here. If I am far more impressed if somebody was like, here's the comic I made. you know, it might not necessarily work when you're in your early stages because you're trying out a lot of different things, and it's hard to try out a lot of different things over 20 pages, which is the strength of the portfolio versus the end product. But like, it would be cool to be like, and this has happened sometimes with like the portfolios where people are like, hey, here's my portfolio, but also here's the comic I just did. Like that really impresses me, and it shows me you're serious. So when you're in school, beyond the assignments, beyond the portfolio, put time, extra time on the side into trying to make an end product. So like, that's kind of like all the stuff that I wish that I had been thinking about, like when I was in school, while I was trying to like grind it out. Thank you for the follow. Ukrack Hunt. Yeah, there's like, I wish that like I just was more conscious and more actively participating in my education in general. The other thing is just in general, pick tough classes, pick tough ones. The teacher is going easy on everybody. He's not doing you a service. And that goes for everything across the board. Like, I learned a ton of art history because I picked teachers that were really hard in art history, and like I would record their lectures and I would listen to it while I was working. I would listen to it while I was walking around Savannah. I would all the time, listening to it all the time, and I learned a crap ton of art history, and it's made my work better in the long run. Take teachers that are going to kick your butt. Okay, third and final part. And I've been talking nonstop now for an hour and a half. So like, this is how freaking loaded you should go to art school is. Third and semi-final part. There's going to be a conclusion. So you go to art school. What if you wanted to only color? Would you say add a full issue color to whatever? You don't think you'll be able to write pencil, ink, letter, and color a comic due to the wow factor? Yeah. Yeah. I'm not saying you got to do the whole thing. Like, what I'm saying is, like, I wanted to be a penciler, and I never penciled 20 pages in a row. When I got out of school, I had 20 pages in a row to color in 3 months, and I thought that was light. And it was light. You know, I wish that I had done more. But yeah, you should, whatever specific thing you want to do, you should be like, here's my lettering portfolio, 40 pages. Here's my coloring portfolio, 20 pages. Here's my, I want a pencil. I did this mini comic. You know, like, I want to write, here's 20 pitches, you know? Like, think about that stuff. Anyway, okay. You're getting out of art school. You've gone to art school, you've picked your art school, you've gone to art school, you've done it, you're drawing as much as possible, you're diversifying your classes, you're trusting your gut, you're getting out of your art school. What should you expect? Shit's hard. There's no career placement. Like, we talked about this a little bit. I've never, ever heard of any college that is like, like Scad says this, like, come down to the like career placement building or whatever, and like, we're gonna help you out. Every single person I ever talked to that did that said it was no help at all. You know, I've never talked to someone who went to a different competing art college and been like, hey, how were they at job placement, and have them be like, oh man, they hooked me up. Like, it has not happened. It's not a real thing. So there's not a lot of career placement. So really, you got to like lift yourself up by your bootstraps. What does that mean? That means that you have to be building an audience while you're at school. You have to be going to Comic-Cons while you're at school. You have to be primed to be hireable. And the only way you're going to get primed to be hireable is to be noticed. A lot of, I talked to a kid who just got out of SCAD, or was in his last year at Heroes Con. And I was like, oh, cool. Do you have a portfolio I could look at? No. Do you have anything I can look at? Not on me. Where can I see your work? Well, I don't really do social media. I don't know what the fuck to tell you. Like, how much would you say this all applies to someone who just wants to write? Can't draw for crap, but you're an aspiring comic book writer. Crease placed a lot of its success on him doing a ton of shows while in school. Yeah, I place my success in doing a ton of shows while in school. Do as many shows as you possibly can. Like, real talk. I mean, you just interchanged like portfolio, like pencil portfolio with writing portfolio. Like, there's a quote that Jerry Seinfeld did in one of his shows or one of his things, some interview. A lot of comedians, when they talk about like trying to pursue comedy, there's a lot of like transitional advice that works both ways, because the grind is the same. Where Jerry was like, and whatever you think of Jerry Seinfeld, whatever, that's not important. He was like kind of only writing when he wanted to. He was kind of lackadaisical about it. When a joke would strike him, he'd write it down, you know. And then he saw construction workers like getting off their lunch break, and he was like just waking up in the morning or whatever, getting off their lunch break, going back to their construction job, like clearly not loving construction, you know, like not having a great day. And he was like, these dudes are up like, you know, at work, 8 a.m., 7 a.m., whatever, whenever construction workers start working. And they are out here hustling. They're out here doing the work. Like, they're doing their job. Like, I should apply the same amount of dedication that to my craft as well. And so like a lot of what I'm saying that is applying to art in general also applies to writing. Like, if you have a week, if you're like, I can't get any of my pitches picked up. Rick Remender, when he was getting started, who's a pretty great writer and well-known within the comic book industry, there was a time when he was like, I remember talking to him, because I've known him for a long time, where he was like, I didn't know like if writing was going to work for him, you know? So he was like, I said, screw it. I'm going to come up with as many pitches as I possibly can and just pitch them everywhere. Absolutely every single place. So he did as many pitches as he possibly could and pitched them everywhere. And I would say it's like the same thing with art. Like, there's no career placement for television. Yeah, that's what you're doing. You don't know if anybody really goes to school for writing comic scripts. Not really. You know, a few writers have gone to Scad, but it's usually for art. Yeah, I mean, this is the other thing, is like the more intimate you are with how to make comics, like as far as like knowing every job, the better comics you're gonna make. Full stop. That isn't to say you should start art school, but maybe you should try making your own comic on the side just to see how it is. But yeah, if you were gonna try to get into writing, I would try to. I don't have a lot of experience with that. I would say, put together pitches, try to get feedback. It's the same thing with everything. Like, put together work, get feedback, adjust the work. Get feedback, adjust the work, get feedback, adjust the work, get feedback, get hired. You know, like, that's the route. Yeah, so there's no career placement once you get out. I exited school with about $80K worth of debt. I had like a coloring career, quote unquote, in that I was working for a studio for a while. In my junior year of, which is third year of college, I started working for the studio in Savannah. My gut told me, get the fuck out of school. Like, you don't need it. I was taking some foundation classes. I missed a sculpting class that is like part of the foundations. So I was spending my time coloring at the studio, like going to work in comics, kind of. Or at least getting my start. and then I would go make crappy sculptures with freshmen. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? You know, like, I'm already at the destination. And, like, my gut was saying to get out. And, like, I probably should have. In retrospect, I probably should have. Any writing program will help. Scripting feels like a different set of muscles to prose writing. Absolutely. I would look for any writing classes you can find online. And see where they are. See if you can take them in physical, you know, and, like, network with other writers and blah, blah, blah. Everything that I'm saying, apply it to writing. So, like, because there's no career placement, there was nothing for me at the end of SCAD. And then when I got out of SCAD, the studio had kind of fallen apart, but, like, my degree was worthless because it was like nobody asks for it. Just my portfolio shines. So I started booking some gigs. I did a gig for no money called NYC Mech forever ago with a lot of really talented people. And I did a gig for $60 a page called Grounded with a lot of really talented people who have all become my friends since. And that was like the start of my network. And I booked those gigs by going to conventions like my sophomore, junior, senior year. The true career goal is making dumb internet images for social media jokes, of course. Thank you, Walter. Nobody knows about that book. I appreciate the hustle. I'm kind of blown away that you know what that book is. At any rate, I took the book for no pay in order because I believed in it and I knew I had to prove myself in order to get other work. I took the other book for very little pay because I needed a paycheck, and, like, it helped me work while I was earning an income. But here's the thing. So if you crunch the numbers, that's 2 weeks worth of work every month with, like, not a whole lot to show for it. I was also paying, like, $15 in flats per page. So I was really making about $45 a page, and then I was getting taxed on top of that. So, like, this paints a picture of, like, what it looked like when I got out of art school. No career placement. I was making $45 a page minus taxes. I was and I was well off to get those gigs. Like, let me stress that as well. Like, those gigs that I got, a lot of my fellow classmates, I believe the reason that I don't see them in comics is because they tried to get jobs when they got out. They couldn't get jobs. And then, like, 6 months go by and comics, you know, like, you have to start paying your student loans. Student loans are astronomical. And, like, the comics machine only works 6 months at a time. Like, there's only, you know, when you think about how the comics machine works, it's like, you know, I get hired mostly on most projects for 5 to 6 issues at a time. So people are looking for projects, like, in waves, it seems. There's a lot of times where, like, I've been, you know, like, in contact with DC later in my career, obviously, in contact with DC, and I've been like, hey, I'm looking for work. What's going on? You guys got anything? And it's like radio silence. And it's like, well, I put your name out to the pool of editors and we'll see what happens. And I'll be like, thanks, you know? And it's like radio silence. And then there's, like, other times where I've been like, hey, I'm looking for work. DC, what do you got? And they're like, and it's like, I'm turning down gigs because it's just like being hired at the right time at the right place. And I personally think comics works 6 months at a time. NYC Mech was one of the first books you really looked into when you started making your own comics. The colors are exactly what you wanted to do. Man, thank you. I really appreciate that. So that book, we could talk about that. I'll talk about that at the end because it's not relevant to this conversation. But so I had, like, these preconceived notions of placement goals that were, like, shattered. I had no career placement, and I was, like, kind of in this grind. And I quickly realized, like, once I got out of school, not only did was like did I have like a razor thin margin of like negative, like I was not making enough money to really live on my own. Um, I was like living in a house with four other people in like the hood, uh, and it was like super cheap, and it was kind of crazy at the time, but I was like, I was booking the next gig, and I was booking the next gig, and that was where I was when I wasn't working on these projects. I was like, I wasn't just sitting around playing Xbox. I was like, okay, how do I send these pages out to people? Like, how do I get myself noticed? How do I get to a Comic-Con? How do I save for this? You got to start to like run your shit like a business. And this is one of the things that I wish that I was told when I was out of school. Napkin math. Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. That's probably accurate. So I was trying to figure this out, and I had this constant pressure of these student loans. And this is a real thing. This is what I didn't realize when I was out of school doing art. I saw comic books as like, and art in general. My only interaction with it while I was in high school was these very famous, very successful artists. Jim Lee. I don't know. Just like, very successful artists at the time. What might be Sean Murphy. We'll use him again for you guys. And so I was like, oh, I'll go to school and then I'll get out and like that's where I'll be. Like that's the placement. That's what's going to happen. But what I didn't realize was that like I got out with this $80K worth of debt. And then I was like, oh, $80K worth of debt won't be a problem when I'm working on Marvel DC books. What I didn't realize was, I would get out and I wasn't making that. I wasn't at the Marvel and DC stuff. It was 6 years before I started working at Marvel and DC. And this was 6 years of hustle. This was 6 years of like grinding it out, like not working a day job, living basically like poor, like buying bags of rice and beans and like try to like maximize my food budget, like stuff like that. Jim Lee, McFarlane, Silvestri. Yeah. Joe Mad for sure. Given my age at the time. Yeah, for sure. You nailed it. So like, I didn't understand that like this was the experience. And, I talked to other artists and they're like, oh yeah, that's absolutely the experience. So like, before you decide if you want to go to art school, you have to understand that like you're giving away a certain amount of freedom when you make that decision to be in for $200,000. Like part of the thing that made making comics so urgent and difficult and took a lot of the choices that I normally have. Like I'm earning my choice back now. And what I mean by that is that when you're financially in the hole like that, it sounds like your experience looking for tech work and living on almost nothing. Yeah. When you're in the hole like that, when you have that loan payment breathing down your neck, like you have to make ends meet. You have to get work. You have to be making a paycheck. Like you have that on your shoulders. And that's not something that goes away in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, even 10 years. Like that is something like I felt like when I got out, I couldn't say no to any project at all, ever. Even if I disagreed with it, even if I didn't think it was a good career move, because I was like, I just need the paycheck right the fuck now. Like that was my mentality when I got out of art school because of my student loans, and student loans have gotten worse. So like when you remember when we were talking about, SCAD student work, let's kick it over to there again. So this stuff is awesome. I like this stuff. I would buy this at a Comic-Con. However, when you start working at, or when you start doing taking loans out for an art school, you start to like lock yourself into not having choices, as many choices and options as you would if you weren't going to art school. So like all the stuff that I said about like, you know, free thinkers, or pinballing around with like other artists and being a great thing, and like go to the location and like network and like, you know, take the sketchbook seriously and all this stuff. Like this is all stuff that's like really, really great pro art school for sure. And definitely what I needed at the time. But like, I was not prepared, and I didn't understand what taking out $80K of debt looked like. And it's hard. And it makes your life hard. And if you want it that bad and you believe in it that bad, like, do it. But like, know that like by the time you get to the end, when I was, one of the things that I did that I really thought was a smart move was once I was a junior and I was showing a portfolio around to Comic-Cons and I wasn't getting much of a response, but people liked my colors. Like I was like, okay, how the hell do I shift gears into whatever is going to be profitable for when I get out of school, so that it wasn't like a year out of school and then I'm trying to figure that out. You know, I was figuring it out while I was in school. I think when you get about midway through college or near your end of your third year, you should be thinking about this stuff. You should be thinking about like, how do I get to the point where I make money because I have this monkey on my back that is student loans. I am not still paying off my student loans, thankfully. I paid them off last year. I aggressively paid them for years and years and years. However, I will say that because of what stops someone from just pushing themselves and using tutorials, Twitch talks like this, YouTube, self-study, leapfrogging the notion, massive student debt you're talking about. I know you meant, yeah, we're going to get into that. Thank you, Charlie. So like I have paid off my student loans. I will be frank with you, because I wasn't making any money and I was making that $60 page rate. One of the things, and this goes into run your shit like a business, and like beyond the self-promotion, you also have to be savvy with like actually how to run a business when you get out of school. And this is something like they did not teach at all in art college. They taught you how to draw naked people. They did not teach you how to run a business. I got out of school and I had an accountant, and I said to that accountant, I was like, look, I'm too dumb to figure out taxes. Here's my expenses. Here's my tax information. Is there anything I should do? And he was like, no, I'll handle it. Don't worry about it. And I was like, well, should I incorporate? Like, should I put myself into an S Corp? Should we set up, you know, like that stuff? And he was like, well, do you have a car? And I was like, no, I can't afford a car. And he was like, well, until you have a company car, it's not really worth it. And I said, okay, because I didn't know. I had no idea. And then this is the thing that happens when you're hustling, like I was hustling, is you make a little bit of money. You make a little bit of money. And I'm talking about years. Like first year, you make a little money. Second year, you make a little money, but maybe a little bit more. Third year, you make a little bit more money. And then there comes a point where your income doubles. You book a really great gig. Something falls into your lap and you're just like, holy shit, now I have money. You know, it like blows your mind. There's a breaking point, like, and every successful artist has had this, like where they're making nothing, and then like there's a jump. And because of that jump, I did not know how to pay my taxes because I was not banking enough, because my taxes were so low that like I was like, whatever, I'll figure it out, payment plan, whatever. And then when I had that jump happen, I was not running my shit like a business, and I should have been incorporated. I should have, like, there's something that's called a freelancer's tax that I wish I had known about. If you are freelance, you will be taxed at a higher rate, basically. The government will take more of your money. If you put yourself into an S corp and you put yourself on a payroll of you being the CEO, you will still have the same income of money, and you will not have the same money coming out to the government. You will also be set up to pay your taxes quarterly, which will help you. Like, all this stuff was stuff that was like, I didn't have the vocabulary to ask for, and I didn't have the wherewithal to understand, and it was so out of my comfort zone that, like, I didn't know what to do. And I wish that art school taught me that stuff, and they just fucking did not. And because of that, I am out of my student loans. I am in tax debt. I have been in tax debt my entire life. I'm only now just starting to dig myself out of my tax debt. Like, I have hired I have since fired that original accountant and hired this badass woman to, like, handle my shit. And she is on top of it. And she looks at it like a game. Like, she's like, how much can we get back? Like, we're going to take the government for all they're worth. You know, like, they're like, we're going to do it all legally, but we're going to, like, you know, maximize what you were doing. Like, she took a look at my old taxes and she was like, honey, you were getting, like, run roughshod, you know? You had a class on taxes and business in your script writing program. It's worth it. I wish, like, the advice that I got from Scad, she would be great at D&D. Yeah, she would. The advice that I got at Scad was like, and this is the thing, when teachers have a regular job income where they're getting that teacher's salary, they're getting taxes taken out of paychecks, they're getting their weekly paycheck, they're not on the side, this, like, freelance side, you know, they're not in the trenches, so they can't really teach you this stuff, you know, like, because they just don't know. They're not on this tip. So basically, I wish that I had known all this stuff, and I'm trying to tell you guys this stuff so that you know that, like, when you're smaller and you're able to make more mistakes, you should do all this stuff. You should put yourself into an S corp. You should get a badass accountant, and you should you know, set it up so that when you are making money, you're not getting hit real hard. And that's what I mean by run your shit like a business. Not only, like, hustle yourself in free time when you are not working on a book, but you should also, like, run your shit like a business. So Ghost Cinnamon Toast said, what stops someone from pushing themselves and using tutorials, Twitch talks like this, YouTube, self-study, and leapfrogging the notion of massive student debt that I'm talking about? Whew. That is a loaded question, and I don't think it's impossible. I think it's a little harder, and the reason is because I don't think I could have done it. Like, especially not at the time, because it was, you know, early 2000s, and the internet was still kind of in its infancy. Like, it isn't what it is now. But I think that you can do it. I think that there are a lot of really fantastic resources that are out there to learn how to do art, to learn how to do script writing. There are, social media has made trying to get somebody's attention within the industry very, very easy. It has made advertising yourself very, very easy. And, like, not only easy, but, like, low cost. To me, it depends on your discipline. Yeah. But, like, here's even beyond discipline. And this is the point I wanted to make with this stuff, because I knew we were going to talk about this. Even beyond discipline, there's, like, so I really liked to draw when I was 18 years old, and, like, I had a good portfolio for an 18-year-old, but it's like, not only is it hard for a kid to be disciplined, but it's hard to understand, okay, like, I'm disciplined, I'm going to sit down and draw. How do I go? Like, how do I draw in a meaningful way in which I will learn, you know? Like, that kind of stuff is hard to decode. It's not impossible, but like not being in school makes it more difficult. Not being in school also, when you don't have somebody there with you, like looking at your work, when one of the things that was a really great thing for me in school was we would do a project, right? And then the whole class would put them up on the board. Like, we turn in a page, every single page on that board, same assignment, same script, same assignment. And we would look at all of them and we'd be like, what's working and what's not? Everybody just throw out your thoughts, you know? Like, what pages aren't so hot? What pages are really working well? You don't get that when you are on your own. And that kind of help, and that kind of, not only does that, like, you know, you gain, you know, respect for other troops in the trenches with you, and like networking and all of that. You're like, and like, you know, all the stuff I was saying about pinballing around with other students, like all of that aside, you also, like, it's very easy when you're on your own to be like, I'm doing it right. And then or think you're doing it right. And then 6 months in, you're like, oh, I did it all wrong. You know, like, it's very easy for that to happen. And it's the other thing is that, like, it's hard to screen, especially when you don't know what you don't know. It's hard to screen, like, what Twitch talks work and what don't. It's hard to screen what YouTube tutorial you need and what you don't. If I were you guys, and I was weighing this stuff, and I was like, well, I do want to go to art school, but I don't have a lot of money. Maybe I can do it on my own. And I'm not discouraging you from doing it on your own. I'm just trying to, like, state plainly the challenges that are involved in it. My voice is dying because I've just been nonstop. When you're trying to figure this stuff out, ask for as much help as you possibly can from other people around you, and also try to go to as many conventions as you can, and try to get as many eyeballs on it as you can. Part of the reason why we do portfolio reviews on this stream is because I don't want art and comics to be behind this, like, insurmountable paywall. You know what I mean? Like, it costs $5 to subscribe to this channel, and when you get that subscription, you get a portfolio review if you want it, as many times as you want. $5 a month is a lot less than $50,000 a year, and I am a knowledgeable person, and I will give you my best judgment. The other thing is that, you know, when we were in school and we were putting all those papers up and we were talking about the work, it's tough being able to talk about art in a critical way where you are knowledgeable and able to vocalize it is also a skill that is not necessarily you're, like, ingrained. Like, you can put something up and you can be like, that works and that doesn't. But if you don't know why, if you can't talk about it, then you're not necessarily a great team member on an artistic team. And, like, school is really great for that too. But that's not to say any of this is unlearnable. Because, like, you go to enough cons, you talk about art enough, you will find, like, you'll find the vocabulary. You'll figure out, like, how to talk about it. Like, you can do all this. I would say that there's a lot of people who are, you know, self-taught within comics, and I don't even realize, because they're just good. Like, the comics speak just for themselves, you know? So my advice is, if you are looking at art colleges, to wrap this all up, if you are looking at art colleges, should you go to art school? Maybe. Bitch, I don't know you. Like, I don't know what you need. I needed to be out of my comfort zone. I needed structure. I needed to understand how to socialize in addition to like how to Canetti's entirely self-taught. I believe it. He's incredible. I needed Pish Nick don't know you. These are things that I needed. And art school was good for me. I don't know if it was 80K worth good. I wish I trusted my gut and ducked out at the last year. And 60K, I think 60K would have been good. Do I think that you need this tough love? Do I think 20K or 200K is worth it? Bish, I don't know you. Like, it might be. It really might be. You could the other thing is like, because we were talking about how like you need to abandon the structure, this idea of like grades and GPA and degree and blah 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 blah. You could go to art school, do, you know, like life drawing, learn this stuff, and duck out and like do comic pages on your own. When we were talking about the student work and I was saying it's more independent comics looking, like you don't need to pay for like, what is it? $100,000 to figure out how to make indie comics. You just start making indie comics. You know what I mean? Like, you need the foundations, and you need the life drawing, and you need to know how to approach perspective, and you need to know how to render on a form. You need to know that stuff. You don't, like, once you start to like really dig into comics, a lot of it is rubber meets the road practice. Wages in any job, not just art, have not increased enough since 2005 to make 20K over 80K reasonable. Yeah, I mean, I also agree with that. So like what I'm saying is like, if you're not going to get the degree anyway, or if the degree is meaningless and you want to do art and you're determined to do art and you're not going to back down from doing anything else, like get as much as you can and get out. That is my advice to you. If you think, well, I want the degree because, you know, I might end up working a white collar job and do comics on the side, and I need to be promoted at my white collar job, I need a degree. Like, that is a real thing. I have a friend from high school who's running into that now. He's a brilliant guy and he needs a degree to get promoted, and he doesn't have one. It's such a delicate thing to figure out. You can absolutely succeed without art college. Art college certainly helps. Whether $200,000 for art college is worth it, whether $100,000 is worth it, whether learning Italian and flying to Milan and you know, going to art school in Italy for what, like $20,000 is worth it. Like, you know, it really depends on you. It really depends on like what you need. You met a banker who makes his own comics on the side. Yeah, like these people exist. Like, I'm making my own comics on the side of coloring because like I love coloring and it's great, but like I have comics in me that I want to make. I have a day job and then I have a side hustle. It just so happens it's both comics, but like I could have just as easily graduated from school and gotten a job in animation, or gotten a job at like a white collar business, or gotten a job as a hedge fund manager who's terrible, and like made comics on the side like right now. You will say that working 20 years in the film and animation and now comics, no one has ever asked where you went to college. Yeah. So I hope we're like at 2 hours and 9 minutes to ask and answer the question, should I go to art college? I hope that one of the editors that came to Scad my senior year was a lawyer who published indie comics on the side. Yeah. Didn't Charles Soule, he's a lawyer who started putting out comics, curse words and all that. Like, maybe you're better off. Like, Bish, I don't know you. Maybe you're better off, like pursuing the law degree, getting a nursing job, like being a mechanic, and then working comics on the side, and then eventually making that break to comics full time. Like, you might be, to be completely honest. Daniel Hooker Art is not following. Thank you for the follow. I think it's easier now. I will close with this. I do think it's easier now than it's ever been to not go to art school, which is kind of ironic because art school is now more expensive than it's also ever been. So, Tom King, CIA to comics. There you go. Yeah. I don't think that there is, the takeaway is also there's no like right way to do it, you know? So basically, you know, I don't know, do it if you want to do it. If you don't, and this is the thing too, like college is not like this set in stone thing. Like you sign up every year. Like you can do a year and be like, yo, this ain't worth it. Like you can do that. Bish, do what you need to do. There's a lot of swearing at the end of this. Yeah. So I hope, tip the Cowboy Messiah hat. Yeah. I hope that this has helped you figure out if you want to go to college. I would also say that if you are watching this video at some point in the future and you still have questions about it, or you're in college and you're thinking about getting out, but you're not sure and you want me to take a look at your portfolio, or I don't know, you are a parent and you are like, my child's thinking about art college and I'm still scared and I don't know what questions to ask when I go to art college, you know, like, thank you, Walter. Here's to survival. Thank you for the buck. If you, for whatever reason, you can follow me, right up there, at Nickfil on Twitter, Nick_Filardi on Instagram. Both of those things are open to DMs. I might not get back to you quite immediately, but they're both open to DMs. Also, my Discord link is down below in the description. I'm on the Discord like 24/7. We're talking about art all the time. We're always posting art that we love. We're posting art that we're working on. You know, like I'm in there. If you subscribe to this channel, you are able to get portfolio reviews, whether you are in high school or you are 35 and thinking about going back to art school. Like, I will give you my thoughts, and like you can give me context for the portfolio too. Like if you're like, hey, I'm thinking about this, I'm not sure, like we can judge based on, like, we don't necessarily have to judge as in like, will this get you a job? We can judge you based on like, you know, where do you stand as far as like art school goes? You know, I don't mind doing that. Let me catch up on chat real quick and then we'll probably call it. Thank you for the subscription. Mike Aurelia. Look around you. Everything you own is now solid gold. You're in high society. You're a member of the Comic Coloring Society. You're 78 years old and you found a box of crayons. Can I send you a portfolio? Yes. As long as you subscribe. Even though you weren't, even though you weren't planning on doing anything, like, I like your talks. I try to be informative. And I think those are in the zone of questioning in this path would be helped by this. Good. Because that's ultimately what I want. I felt like I went to art school with the people around me. No one had gone to art school. No one was working in art. I couldn't really get in touch with anyone that was working in art. I didn't know what art school even meant. I didn't know what $80,000 even felt like or looked like. And so I basically went in blind. And I don't want that for anybody else. Hot take a business degree and learn how to draw on the side. You're not wrong. A mix would be good. A little bit of art school, a little bit of business. Can't fault that. Let me see. Succinct. Yeah. That's me. Society that butchers your handle. Yeah. Oh man, sorry. Pro tip, make your entire portfolio plaid and hot pink. On that note, I think we're going to call it. We're going to stream some art next. Wait, what day is it today? We're going to stream some art tomorrow. I got to find something to color and we'll stream it. kicking around the idea of doing some inking streams. I got some stuff on the table actually over there that I've been meaning to ink. So maybe we'll do that instead. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what kind of mood I'm in. We'll see what kind of workload I have tomorrow. So I'm going to stream tomorrow, and then we're going to stream some games this weekend, as always. Everyone out there in art college and not in art college, and everyone hustling, keep making comics, and I'll catch you on the next one. Maybe my voice will be a little better. Later, guys.